Hello and welcome to Elecspo, and it is time for part 2 of our non-league £1 billion experiment. I gave two non-league teams £1 billion, Blyth Spartans from the Vanarama National League North and Slough Town from the Vanarama National League South. It was North versus South, two teams with £1 billion in the bank. The race was on to see who could climb the Football League the fastest, and after 10 years so far, it's Slough who are excelling. They are in the Sky Bet Championship, one promotion away from the top flight of English football. But as for Blyth Spartans, the poor buggers are doing awful. They did make it to League 2, but that was as good as it's got, and the last time we saw each other, they were sitting in the National League, having just lost the playoff final. Things aren't going well for Blyth despite their wealth, but Slough Town, I think by the end of this episode, should be a Premier League club. But will that become a reality? Let's dive into the simulation and see what the next 10 years bring for Blyth Spartans and Slough Town. Right, this is where we left things in June 2031. 10 years of both of these clubs having £1 billion. Slough finishing 13th in the championship, 61 points. A point behind Sunderland on the same number of points as Crystal Palace. It just shows how far Slough have came in 10 years. And things are only going to get better because they've got loads of money to spend. But for Blyth, it just hasn't really worked, has it? They've came second in the National League in 2031. And in the last game, they were beaten in the playoff final to their biggest rivals, Gateshead. See, that was a 2-0 defeat, heartbreak for Blyth, but perhaps things will pick up over the next 5 years. Let's go 5 more years into the future, 2036. By then, Blyth need to be out of the National League. They need to be playing in the Football League. As for Slough, I think they'll be in the Premier League by then, but will that become a reality? Let's find out. It's not a reality, is it? It's Football Manager. Will it happen? Let's find out. Let's go. Right, here we are, the 8th of June 2036. It has been 15 years of this experiment, and we're going to start with the big boys of it, Slough. Where are Slough in 2036? They have just came third in the championship, but have they won promotion? Well, they're managed by Mikel Arteta, that's a pretty big name for the old Rebels. But how have they got on? Have they gone up? Let's find out. They were beaten in the playoff final on penalties to Norwich. They came third with 89 points. They were a little bit shy of Reading and West Brom, but beaten in the final on penalties. That is heartbreaking for Slough. Let's have a little look at them, see if they have made it to the Premier League at all over the past 5 years. They're playing at the Slough Stadium, so obviously when they were playing at Vicarage Road before, that was because the Slough Stadium was being built. It holds 25,000 people. We'll have a little look at the infrastructure a little bit later on. But they have actually been in the Premier League. They won promotion in 2032. They came 5th, they won the playoffs, and they even survived in the top flight in their first season. They came 17th, then they came 20th in 2034, they came 7th in 2035, and in 2036, 3rd in the table, beaten in the playoff finals. But it just shows Slough they're miles ahead of Blyth. Let's check what kind of money they've been spending. They've just spent £96 million. Year before that, just shy of 20. Year before that, 42 million. £105 million. That's the one big spend in 2032-33. Even getting Ferran. Thought it was Ferran Torres, but it's not. Let's see who their biggest signing was. £22 million there for Marcus Leonardo, banging in the goals for Burnley. Now he's hoping to do it for Slough Town. Let's have a little look at the players. The wages are still absolutely huge. They've got 4 players earning more than £100,000 in the second tier of English football. I bet there's Premier League teams that aren't paying that kind of money. £115,000 for James Rutter. He's the star player, 30 years old, signed on free actually from Southampton. And he's been great throughout his time with Slough. What a free signing that is. Let's have a little look at the managers, see who they've had. Obviously Mikel Arteta is now the man in charge. A big name for Slough. Danny Cowley left after just shy of 5 years. And Mikel Arteta, he's been there for He's in his 5th year now. It was Arteta who did get them to the Premier League, but couldn't keep them up either. But they're stuck by him. The Slough owner is doing a good job of just giving managers time. I mean, 14 years nearly for Neil Baker, nearly 5 years for Danny Cowley. No one's been sacked by Slough in this simulation, which is pretty impressive, to be honest with you. We'll have a little look at the landmarks. So the youth category is going up, the youth and training facilities have been upgraded. The stadiums, obviously the new stadium, the capacity is being increased. It was initially only 9,000. Oh no, sorry, that was a different stadium. They moved to the Slough Stadium in 2033 and it was already increased to £25,000. Throughout the simulation, the youth and training facilities have been upgraded, it's perfect. It's what you want to see teams doing with this kind of money. It happened in the 2021 time I did this, when I did it with South Shields. It kind of looked a bit underwhelming to start with, but they were actually building the foundations to have years of success, and that seems to be what Slough Town are doing. But they are yet to make it to the Premier League and stay there consistently. They've had 2 years of Premier League football and they've narrowly missed out on a return to the top flight. But how are Blyth getting on? You'll have noticed from the Championship table that Blyth are not in the Championship. That is because they're only in Sky Bet League 2. Managed by Mark Cucurella, the Brighton left back, which is, yeah, fair enough. Let's have a little look at their trajectory over the past few years. Have they made it higher than League 2? They haven't. They haven't made it higher than League 2. So they won the title, the National League, in 2032. Since then, they've just been consistent in the 4th tier of English football. They did get a playoff place in 2033, then they dropped off. This season, 5th again. How did they get on in the playoffs? Well, they were beaten, by the looks of things, in the semi-finals by Hull. There was 6 points off Crawley, who got the 3rd automatic place, and in the end it was Wimbledon who went up via the playoffs. But Blyth, I suppose at least they're in the mix for going up to League 1, but I mean, they're still just such a long way away from Slough, and considering they were both at the same level of football, they both got exactly the same amount of money, to see one team flying and one team not flying, I'm a little bit surprised, to be honest with you. I thought these two teams would be a bit more, nip and tuck, and you can just tell from the managers how different it is. Slough have never sacked a manager. Blyth are going through loads of them. The only one who stayed for a very lengthy time was Mark Bonner. Then they had Connor Roberts briefly. They had Ronnie Vint for nearly 2 years, and now Cucurella, he's been there for 209 days. He'll probably stay on, but he could be in trouble if he doesn't get Blyth up in the next year. Let's check their transfers out, because they won't be spending any massive money. See, I mean, you can just see there, the most they've spent is just over 200 grand. They've got all this money and there's no one there to spend it on, because I mean, the reputation isn't good enough to get big names in, but they've got the money to be spending on big wages. What are the wages now at Blyth? Let's have a little look. 15 grand. So it's actually dropped a bit, because they were spending they were giving Max Power over £20,000, so things have really dipped for Blyth. They're still playing at Croft Park. They haven't extended it by the looks of things. Or maybe they have, sorry. 4,000 actually, they probably have extended it. Although it doesn't look like they have, actually. I can't see it mentioned here. Perhaps they haven't increased the size of Croft Park. They have been working on the youth category rating, but it's actually gone down over the past 12 months to a category 3. It was category 2. I say they've had financial fair play issues, which is the problem if you're kind of just getting stuck in the lower leagues. If you've got all this money, they fail to comply with financial fair play regulations in 2032, which maybe has hindered them over the past few years. But let's go another 5 more years into the future. By then it'll be 2041. It'll be 20 years of having £1 billion in the bank. Will we have had any cup success by then? Will Blyth even have made it out of League 2? Let's go into 2041. Let's see what happens. Okay, here we are, the 7th of June 2041. 20 years of the £2 billion investment into Slough and Blyth Spartans. But where are our two money bags in 2041? Let's go straight to the Premier League, because that is where Slough Town are in 2041, and they have survived in the top flight. There they are in 16th place with 41 points, which it's not many, but it's enough, and they are 10 points clear of Bournemouth, who went down in 18th place. How long have Slough been in the top flight? Well, they're still managed by Mikel Arteta, and for the past 4 seasons they have been a consistent force, maybe force isn't the right word, a consistent presence in the Premier League. In 2037 they went up via the playoffs, coming 6th, then they became 16th, 17th, 13th in 2040, and now in 2041, 16th in the Premier League. And with that, they've been spending some big cash, so to speak. £69 million spent the most recent season, 84 million there, 81 million. I mean, it's not massive money, but it's big, compared to what they were at the start of the simulation. Finally getting the chance to splash the cash that they've had for 20 years. Now they're in the Premier League, they're there consistently, and they are spending money like there is no tomorrow. Let's check the wages out. Let's see how much the highest earner is on. £185,000 a week. So many of their players earning more than 100 grand, and the biggest earner, £185,000 a week for Leonardo Russamando. Let's check him out. Centre midfielder. Is he Italian, Argentinian perhaps? He's Uruguayan. He cost £24 million from Manchester City, and he's been a great signing, a great player for Slough in the Premier League. So they're going well in the Premier League. Have they had any cup success as well over the past 20 years? Doesn't look like it. They haven't reached a Carabao Cup or an FA Cup final, but that doesn't matter, because it's taken 20 years for this club to stabilise themselves in the Premier League. Still playing at the Slough Stadium, capacity still over 20,000. Still upgrading the youth facilities, the youth category ratings up to category 1, which is what we want to see. And things are just brilliant for Slough Town in 20 years time. Christ, how long's Mikel Arteta been there actually? Mikel Arteta has nearly been manager for 10 years. As I said, the Slough chairman, whoever's calling the shots, is giving managers time, and that has guided them to Premier League survival. To be consistently surviving in the Premier League is great. They're getting a great base for success, and perhaps in the next 10 years things are going to get even better for them, but you'll have to wait and see what happens in part 3 for that. I've got a little trick up my sleeve for that one, but more on that when we get to the end of this video. Let's go to Blyth and see where they are in another 5 years time. In 2041 they have came 6th in Sky Bet League 1. Has that won them promotion via the playoffs? Let's have a little look. 6th in League 1, and they've been beaten in the playoff final, losing 1-0 to Wigan Athletic. So Blyth narrowly missing out on a place in the Championship. Have they made it to the Championship yet so far in this simulation? They haven't actually. This is their best ever finish. They didn't make it to League 1 until 2039 when they won the League 2 title. And then in 2040 they actually only came 20th in League 1, but it was a big rise in this past season, 6th in the table, narrowly missing out on promotion. Cucurella, he's long gone, he left after just over a year. They've since had a few managers, Graham Gregg, Daniel Everson, and now Jamie Siwan, whose name I don't know how to pronounce clearly. Let's have a little look at the landmark. Well, they fail to comply with financial fair play, which is once again hindering them. The youth category's gone down to category 3. What about the player wages? What are we paying? 13 grand. Few players on over £10,000, but it's nothing compared to what Slough are doing. What about the transfers? They had one splurge. That came in the 2038-39 season when they spent a whopping £2 million. Ed Edmonds, the biggest arrival there, for just shy of £2 million. But things really just haven't gone well at all for Blyth Spartans. I mean, they haven't even increased the stadium or anything. It just seems like they've got everything wrong. Yes, I mean, it's great to see them in League 1, and that is a meteoric rise compared to where they were at the start of the simulation. But when you compare that to Slough, I mean, they're doing alright in the Premier League. But Blyth, it's just hasn't really worked. Have they won anything? They were runners-up in the FA Trophy in 2032. and that has been as good as it's got for Blyth. We've given them £1 billion, and in 20 years all they've done is reach Sky Bet League One, where they lost in the playoff final. Perhaps we'll have a different outlook on this if they'd won that playoff final, because they would have been in the championship, where they finally would have been able to start spending some money. But alas, they're going to have to settle for another season of League One football. But for Slough, they are still a Premier League club. They're going well in the top flight. They're surviving. They're consistently staying up in the top flight. And they are perfectly placed going into the next 10 years of this experiment. That is the end of part 2. Part 3, there's going to be a little twist. We're going to look at another 10 years of Slough and Blyth, but I'm going to give them both another £1 billion. I'm going to increase their budget all the way to £1 billion. Once again, the finances are going to be boosted as far as they can go, just like it was at the start of the simulation. And they're going to have another chance to splash the cash. Will that take Slough from Premier League relegation fodder to challenging for the title? And can it finally take Blyth higher than bloody League One? You'll have to wait for part 3 to find out. But for now, we are going to leave it there. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. As always, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to Elecspo. And until next time, we will see you around.